Hey guys, it's Caleb from Rokblokz, back in the shop. We got this Chevy 2500 HD. We've got a new step back kit for it. We've got a fender pullback kit for it. And we've got a lower mud flap delete kit for it. We've got those three products to install today, so let's go ahead and take you along for the ride. Here we have the tools laid out that you'll need for install. Today we'll be using a 13mm socket on this wrench. We'll be using a 10mm box wrench. We will also be using a Phillips Head 2 drive, a T15 Torx, a 4mm Allen, an 1/8" Allen, a mallet to help press in some of the flange nuts, and then a level. Here we have the fender pullback mount kit. What you'll get in that kit is your fender pullback mount plate, your mount bracket, and the hardware. We'll go ahead and put a breakdown of that hardware on the screen right now. Before we head to the vehicle, we're going to do some pre-assembly right here on the bench. First, we're going to take our clips and we're going to put it so that the extruded portion is on the non-etched side. We're going to put that on both ends like so, and then we're going to take our bracket. We're going to put that on the non-etched side as well. We're going to secure it with a screw and a small washer. We're going to go through this outer middle hole here. And we're going to get it started with one lock nut right here. We're going to keep it like so and take the rest of our hardware. When we mount it, we'll have to mount it like this so that the OEM bolt that secures it can go through right here, and then we'll turn it after we've secured it in place and put in our second screw. So now let's head to the vehicle and begin installing. Here we are at the front fender. We're going to begin by cutting and clearancing the lower fender. This is required for the step backs as they are in interference fit with the stock fender. This is also going to net you the most space. On this truck here, it's running 37s with no lift. So we're going to go ahead and add the footage of us trimming that right here.
We're going to be trimming along the fender's edge and following the line that we've created. Going to be stepping this back about 1 inch by 1 inch, and if you want to make sure that you avoid cutting off that upper flange, because we will be reusing that OEM insert there for mounting, so doing this trimming allows the clearance for 37s and the larger step back brackets. Because they are an interference fit, this clearance allows for those brackets to work. And so yeah, we're just finishing up cutting here, and after we get it all cut, then we'll go ahead and we'll move on to cleaning up the cut, and then we will put a little bit of paint over the cut to make sure that our fender is sealed again.
Now that we've got that trimmed and the fender edge cleaned up so that there's no sharp edges, it's suggested to get some touch-up paint to paint over your edge here to keep it, protected from the elements and everything else. It's just suggested, it's not required. And then next we're going to take our edge trim and we're going to start up here at the corner. And we're going to put that over top after our paint dries. So you may need to wait a while till your paint dries. And then you just kind of flex this along. That's why it's important to clean it up, so that way you don't want a sharp edge where you can touch your finger. So now we're just going to take our side cutters and cut the extra. Now that we've got that trimmed and we've got our trim piece down here on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and open up the fender. At this point, you've probably already removed the factory mud flap and these OEM screws. We put them back in just for the sake of this. Then we're going to get up inside here and we're going to remove this bracket here, removing these two bolts. They're both a 13 millimeter. So we'll go ahead and get those removed. And we'll take this entire bracket and we're going to reuse one of the OEM bolts that came out of it, and that's going to secure our fender pullback, or our fender liner pullback kit. So set the bracket and the one to the side. We'll set our OEM screws to the side. Now we're going to take our loosely assembled fender liner pullback kit. We're going to take the OEM screw, put it through the large hole on the bracket and our 15 millimeter spacer, and we're going to screw that into the lower hole that we just removed the OEM bracket from. I'm going to go ahead, and then we want the bracket to be parallel with the ground, pointing in. And we'll snug that up. With that snug, you can go ahead, and if you need to, you can bend the bracket a little bit back so that way it's flat here. That'll help pull the liner in tighter. Now we're going to take our other number 10 with small washer. We're going to put that through the second hole, and that's going to level out our plate here. We'll get that secured on the back side. Now we can take our 1/8 inch Allen and our 10 millimeter box wrench. We can go ahead and we can tighten those fully down, securing it in this orientation. There we go. Now we're going to jump to the lower fender cap here, then we'll close up our liner, and then we'll install our mud flap. So let's go ahead, grab that lower cap. Here we have the lower components for the mud flap delete kit. What you'll get in that kit is your front lower cap, the hardware for that cap. We'll go ahead and put a breakdown of that on the screen right now. And then your rear lower fender delete cap. Now we're going to install our lower fender cap, and to do so for the step back, you'll notice that this has an extra hole on it. We're going to take our M6 clip and we're going to slide it onto that hole there. This provides an extra mount point for the step backs, which is not required on our standard flat flap. So now our lower cap is ready for installation. This portion is a pin that is designed to correspond with the clip inside your fender. And then there's a little part back here that there's a little tongue on the back of your fender here that will slide into that. So we're going to slide it up in, aligning it with that inner portion here on your fender. And then that's just going to click into place. And then we're going to pull this backside out and slide that little tongue in there. Now we're good to go ahead and take our 20 millimeter flathead with dress washer, slide that through our cap and through the hole in the body. And we're going to secure it on the inside with a small washer and an M6 lock nut. With that fully secured, we can now return the liner, and then we'll secure it in its new spot by using the two M6 bolts right here. And then we will continue to mount our... Now we can go ahead and replace the liner in its new position, mounting it to our pullback bracket, and then we'll install our step back. So let's go ahead. We're going to release that. We're just going to tuck our liner back into position underneath the body, or underneath the flare on the outside here. Just tucking. keep our 4mm Allen, and then we're going to grab the two 20mm flathead screws with dress washers that are provided in your pullback kit, and we're going to pull our liner back and align our screw holes. We're going to utilize the OEM screw holes for this, and it's going to go straight into these M6 clips. That's going to pull the liner back about 1 to 1.25 inches and get it out of your way. If you'd like for it to pull it a little bit harder, you can bend that bracket and that will pull it a little bit further back as well. So we're just going to go ahead, tighten those down. Now that our liner is back in place, you'll notice that the lower hole where the original screw went through has now been relocated. You'll want to align that and or drill a small hole through your liner, so that way it is easier to locate where the OEM clip behind it is. So we've already got our hole drilled, but it's as simple as just kind of marking, and then you can pull this portion of the liner and then drill it out with a 5/16 drill bit. After you've got your new hole, you can return the liner so that it's nice and flat. We're now going to go ahead, grab our step back bracket and begin mounting. Here we have the front laid out. What you'll get in your kit is your front bracket for that corner, your front flap, and then you'll also get your fender mount clip and then the hardware. We'll go ahead and put a breakdown of that hardware on the screen right now. Another optional thing that you may receive in your kit is if you choose a color, you'll get strips of vinyl to place on the flap that will go on the flap and behind the bracket to highlight the cutout logo here. So we're going to go ahead, they asked for red on this vehicle, so we're going to go ahead and apply that to our flap right now. Now, before we apply the vinyl, we're going to go ahead and press in our flange nuts into our flap. To do so, now to begin assembly, we're going to take our flap and we're going to press our flange nuts into it. Then we'll go ahead and put our vinyl on, and then we'll secure it to our main bracket. So let's go ahead and get that started. To do so, we're going to flip our flap over to the non-etch side. We'll take our flange nuts and we're just going to press those into the hex-shaped holes. Now that we've got those flange nuts pressed into our flap, we're going to go ahead, flip it over. Now we're going to apply our colored vinyl. We're going to place it center between the holes and center between the ends. So, like so. Rub that into place. Now, we're going to take some medium strength thread locker, put it on each of these nuts, and then we'll assemble it to the bracket. Now, we've got all our Loctite on our nuts. We're going to go ahead, lift it up into position. I'll just get those started. A few threads to help support our flap. Now we can go ahead and tighten those till we just see the flange nut seat. Now with our flap fully assembled, we're good to head over to the vehicle and begin installing. Now we've got our step back bracket. When you first get it, it'll come flat. There's not much curve in these fenders, but I have found it helpful to slightly curve our bracket. I like to put it over my thigh, just so that adds a nice gradual curve to it, just like so. That's going to help align with the fender here. Next, we're going to set up our fender edge clamp. To do so, it's going to be on the same side as the logo, and we're going to have the teeth facing the outer edge of the flap. And then on the inside here, we're just going to secure it with our number 10 1/2-inch machine screws. And then we're going to put those through some dress washers. And we're just going to thread those straight into the flange nuts that we pressed into those fender edge clamps. Let's get those started, a few threads just to hold it in place. Now we can take our flap. We're going to take one of our number 8 screws. That's going to go through this inner mount point right here, and we're going to go through that hole that we created in the liner and secure it into the OEM insert right there. Let's go ahead, get that started by hand. The larger you make that hole, or if you just trim the liner, the easier it will be to locate it. Smaller the hole, sometimes the cleaner it will look, but it will make it a little more difficult. Next, we're going to take our M6 25mm, put that through a dress washer, and that's going to go into that M6 clip that we placed on the fender cap right here. Just go ahead and get that started. Now we're going to take our fender edge clamp and we're going to push that over the plastic fender here. To do so, you'll want to start on the inside and then kind of scoop that underneath. And so now we have those 3 points aligned. And then for the upper mount point here, we're going to take another number 8 screw. We're going to take our material spacer, place that on the back side of the mud flap between the flap and the liner, put our screw through it, and then screw into the OEM insert right there. We'll get that started by hand as well. Now that we've got all our screws in, we're going to lightly snug them all down, and then we'll set the adjustment angle of our flap. Now you can go ahead and use the adjustment panel on this to adjust these as far in or out as you want. They have about a 1/2 inch of adjustment. We're just going to pull ours out and check along the bottom edge with a level, setting it to where we want. Once you get it to where you want, you can fully tighten down all of the screws. That lower hole, you'll want to have your dress washer on there. And then we'll have that fully tightened down. With all those screws fully tightened down, that completes the front install. You can repeat these same steps on the other side. Now let's go ahead and jump to the rear. Here we have have the rear laid out, what you'll get in your kit is your rear bracket for that corner. You'll get your rear mud flap for that corner. Then you'll also get the fender edge clamp that goes with your hardware kit and the hardware. So we'll go ahead and put a breakdown of that hardware on the screen right now. Also, if you choose to get a colored logo, you'll be sent with strips of colored vinyl. We have ours here that will assemble when assembling the flap. So to begin, we're going to take our flap, we're going to pre-assemble it with our flange nuts. We're going to flip it over to start that process, and we're going to press them in from this side. With all the flange nuts pressed in, we can go ahead, flip our flap back over, apply our vinyl here. We're going to go ahead and grab our vinyl, peel it off. We're going to put it in between the holes here and center it between all of them. Centered, we'll smooth it out. Now we're going to take our medium strength thread locker and apply it to all of our nuts. Now that we got all the thread locker applied to the nuts, we can go ahead, lift our flap into position, aligning it with the bracket. I'm going to take our 1/4 inch machine screws and just get those started to support the flap. I like to go on the far ends, so that way it helps align all the other ones. But realistically, you can do it in whatever order you want. Then we're going to go ahead, make sure it's aligned with the edges of our bracket, adjust it to where we want. It's just a little adjustment, and then we're going to secure our screws till the flange nut just barely seats itself. Like so. And we'll go ahead and do that to the rest of them. Now that we have the mud flap attached to our rear bracket, we can head to the truck and begin installing. Here we are at the rear fender. You'll want to begin by removing your lower factory mud flap. To do so, there will be 3 screws located in the fender well here and 2 located on the bottom. You'll go ahead and remove those and pull that flap out. Now we're going to go ahead and install our lower fender cap. That is just going to press up in here and clip into place. If you're going to install this by itself, you'll want to secure at this point here with the OEM screw. But now we're good to grab our mud flap and begin installing. What I like to do with our flaps is they come mostly flat. There isn't very much curve in this fender, but I still like to put it over my thigh and give it just a little bit of a curve to the bracket, so that way it sits nice along the fender's edge here. Now we're going to prep our fender edge clamp at these 2 holes on the top of our bracket here. To do that, we're going to take our 2 1/2-inch machine screws, put those through some dress washers. We're going to take our clamp, place it on the same side as the logo with the serrated edge facing the outside of, or the outer edge of our flap. And now we're going to take our screws and secure that just a few turns. With those secured, we can go ahead and begin mounting our flap by taking one of our number 8 screws, placing it through a dress washer. We're going to start by using this outer point right here, going through the lower fender cap hole and into the OEM clip there. We're just going to start that by hand. That's started by hand. We can press our flap up against the edge here, and we can take that fender edge clamp and slide it behind the plastic fender, like so. Sliding that so that way it grabs that. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our other number 8 screws. We're going to go into the other 2 OEM points on the bottom. With those in place, we can grab our Phillips head screwdriver and lightly snug down all of our points. With all our points lightly snugged down, we can now go ahead, pull our flap and adjust it to where we want, checking along the bottom edge with a level. Get that set to where we want, and now we'll fully tighten down all of our hardware. Now with all the hardware fully tightened down, that completes the rear install. You can repeat these same steps on the other side. Thanks for watching.